I am in record mode. You ready
Okay.
to start it?
Let's rock and roll.
All right, I'll start and I'll let you yak, and then you
Okay.
can just let me know when you want me to yak.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, Kevin Coop.
Hello, David Cisneros.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this fabulous, what are we, Wednesday?
Yep.
Wednesday, June 6th. All right. We're going to get started in just a minute as people are still trickling in a little bit. But Kevin is the master graphic artist. I would call him that, right? How many years of experience, Photoshop and all this? Graphic art
A
wise?
lot.
A lot.
Yeah, I first was employed as a graphic designer way back in about 1987, and I worked full time as a graphic designer and as a
Wait a minute. 1987. Let's see
yeah.
that. I was in 8th grade. Yeah, I was in 8th grade.
You're a jerk.
I would have put that dig in there. Yeah, I was in the 8th grade. So anyways, a
um,
lot of experience here for Mr. Coop.
yeah,
Right?
and a graphic designer and as a copywriter. Did that full time for a few years. I was an art major in school at the time. Ended up leaving that trade and doing a bunch of other things, including, of course, the natural progression that every graphic designer goes through, and that's becoming a cop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody does that.
yeah, every graphic designer has to be a cop at some point or another. And anyway, my wife and I, we own a graphic design, advertising design, web design, commercial photography, illustration business. My wife operates that full time. So in truth, she is much more the graphics master than I am. But
She is.
I do have a lot of experience with graphics and Photoshop. So this ought to be fun.
Yeah. Cool stuff. I just want to make sure I see some of you are leaving some comments to say hello. So I want to say hello to you guys. Just want to make sure the audio is coming through really clear, and we're going to get started because it's 10 o'clock on my dial, and I want to honor those of you that showed up on time. So we're going to preview, or actually Kevin's going to show some things regarding the Little Red Snapper software, which is it's an awesome tool. It can't do everything that we would want in a tool like this, but it really does a lot. I mean, I was using it for some fan page tabs yesterday, also making our mobile graphics for a client. So really easy to do. So Kev, you're going to go through that, right? And then you're going to show us Pixlr, which I'm not truly familiar with all that much, but so I'm excited about that. And then Photoshop, we'll get into, and I know we could do a whole week-long training on Photoshop, but
Yeah, probably we'll spend most of our time on the web taking snaps with the Little Red Snapper. We'll probably spend more of our time in Pixlr than in Photoshop, just because Pixlr is an online tool and it's a free tool, so it's accessible to everybody that's on the webinar, as opposed to Photoshop, which is neither free and is platform specific. So if you buy Photoshop, you have to have the right version for your machine. However, if we do jump into Photoshop, and I'm totally cool with doing that if people have that interest, you just need to note that probably most everything I show you is also available to be done inside of Photoshop Elements, which is kind of like the light version of Photoshop. I'm going to be showing you the full version of Photoshop, although my version is a few years old now. I'm using Photoshop CS4. I think they just went to 6. But that's a cool thing to point out too, because if you can grab a little bit older version of Photoshop, all the way back to CS2, the full version of Photoshop CS2 is still extremely powerful, and it'll let you do a whole lot of stuff. But if you really want to go to the Photoshop route, you might just look into Photoshop Elements, the light version. It does pretty much everything that you want to do graphically, except if you get into using Photoshop for web development, where you're going to start slicing images. Photoshop Elements does not do slicing. So if you know what I'm talking about, if you want to do slicing, you need the full version of Photoshop. And even an old version of CS2 will do slicing. So just something to think about.
Okay.
And
Cool.
I should point out this: if someone has some extra ideas in regards to some URL that we should go to try something, I'm totally cool with just winging it. So either you, Dave, if you want to say, hey, go here and see what you can do with this, or if somebody wants to throw in a URL and you want to pass it along to me, I'm cool with that too. So are we ready?
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll keep my eye on the questions. If you guys could, just bring those. If the number one question we always get, is this going to be recorded? Yes, it's going to be recorded. So this is the last time I'm going to address that question. But
that's what you think.
Well, I'm not gonna address it anymore. I know it's going to be asked, but yes, it's going to be recorded. So you'll see that in the download page as soon as we get it all rendered and everything. There's already some questions coming in that are words that you already said, Kev, like define what slicing is, and that we can get, like I said, a whole week into what Photoshop can do and all that kind of stuff. But maybe briefly touch upon that. But again, guys, we're not gonna spend a lot of time in Photoshop. But
slicing and dicing. Slicing is basically a technique where you basically take an image and you actually slice it into smaller component parts. And it's typically done for web development where maybe you have, let's see here, I think. Yeah, this would be a good kind of an example. If you look at this brown area up here, this navigational area for the Cheesecake Factory, if you can kind of envision in your mind this light brown and dark brown area right here, if you can kind of dump all of the other stuff that sits on top of it in your mind, this image is really the same exact image across its horizontal plane. So what you can do in web development is you can either cause it to be one big image, and I can tell you that that's what this designer has decided to do because I've already looked at it. But you can also take a really thin slice. So I could take just a tiny portion of this image from its top to bottom, and then through CSS I could tell it to repeat it in the x-axis or tell it to repeat horizontally. And since the image is exactly the same left to right, it would just basically set that teeny little sliced image next to itself, a billion times basically as it made up this image, and it would look like it would look exactly the same, but the end result would be it would be using an image slice that is much smaller in file size. So rather than an image that might be, I don't know, 20 kilobytes in size, this one teeny slice might only be half of 1 kilobyte just repeated. And so that's kind of what slicing is. It's just a way to break up an image into smaller component parts that can then be repeated either vertically, horizontally, or both. In the case of many backgrounds are just a small square segment, and that they're repeated both horizontally and vertically to fill an area, and that's a slice. So that's all we'll say about that. So go ahead.
When they're repeated like that, Kev, that you're just using a really small sized file, right? So you want to do that so that it's not taking forever for your website to load up, correct?
Yeah.
Is that why you do
that?
that?
Absolutely. So basically, when you think about page load speeds for the web, of course, the smaller the file size, the better. So in terms of, this gets into geeky web development stuff, but in terms of images, each time your browser has to go into your server and call up an image to bring it back and display it to the visitor, that's called an HTTP request. Basically, it's just the browser having to go say, please, Mr. Server, I need that image, logo.png or whatever it happens to be. That's the image I need to display, and then the server serves it up and the browser displays it. So each time the browser has to do that, it's an HTTP request, and so the more images you have on the page, the more times the browser has to access the server to retrieve the image data. So that's something that you want to be considerate of when you're building web pages, because of course the more HTTP requests you have, the longer it's going to take the browser to retrieve all that data and return it back to your your web page. And additionally, the larger those file sizes are, the more challenging or long or lengthy that process is. So you're in all web development, whether it's regular or especially if it's mobile, you're trying to build pages that are as light as possible in terms of file size and to reduce the amount of HTTP requests as much as possible, such that the page is rendered for the visitor as fast as possible. That's good for both mobile SEO, and it's also good for just human visitors, because no one wants to wait around. You know, we've all seen pages where you can see physically it kind of loading in slow motion, and oh my goodness, that is just so annoying. So it's bad for all web development, but it's especially bad for mobile, because of course the mobile operating systems are not as robust as a desktop operating system, and the mobile browsers the same, and of course all of the horsepower of a smartphone especially, while they're impressive, they just don't have the same, you know, speeds, disk space, etc., the ability to basically serve up pages as fast as a desktop or laptop would. So let's get started. I think probably, hopefully by now, you guys have all had a chance to, you know, download the software, install it, play around with it. I mean, it's just a fun piece of kit, basically, just to play around with, and you're not going to hurt anything. So in that case, it's pretty awesome. But I do want to show you just some examples as I've been just preparing this morning to deliver this webinar. There are definitely some challenges with the software as well, and it's not the challenge necessarily, it's not a fault of the software, it's the fact that each unique situation you're going to run into is in fact unique. So here's an example right now for the Cheesecake Factory. So let's say for the Cheesecake Factory, you know, you want to snap the main logo type, which is here. You'll also know that this square colored pattern is also kind of part of their website motif, and the client may or may not want, you know, that as part of their mobile site, but they probably do. So if I were to basically use the software to snap this image, I could snap to about this vertical line here before we get stuff maybe that we don't want, right? There's, you know, we probably don't want this stuff because this is all navigational stuff that wouldn't be live on our mobile site. We're just looking for graphic stuff. So one thing that you can do, sometimes, it's not always going to work, but I'm using Firefox at the moment. Firefox makes this easier than Chrome or and I don't use Internet Explorer, so it's easier to do this in Firefox than it is for Chrome. You can very frequently right-click on an image and see if it'll allow you to view it. So in this case, you can see where it says View Background Image. And if I say that, you can see that right now it has the ability for me to actually view the image here without the logo sitting on top, without the, well, it has the vertical separators, but it doesn't have any of that other text. So there's a couple things you could do. You could either just save this image, because the little red snapper does allow you to import an image into it. So I could right-click, choose Save Image As, and then actually just save the image itself right to my computer and then bring it into the little red snapper. And I'm going to tell you that you're probably going to get your best quality that way. If you have the ability to save certain elements of your image, you're probably going to get the best results that way. So just something to think about. However, for this, just to make it time friendly, I'm going to bring up the little red snapper software here, and we're going to take a snap of a section of it. One thing to note, again, hopefully you've played around with the software, you know that in the preferences area, which is edit and then preferences, you do have the ability to set standards basically that'll be used. You can override ride them, but so if you wanted to do something that was a different width and height, you can set them here. In playing around with the software, I have come across the fact that right now it appears that the largest width you can create is 600 pixels. You can see if I try to type in 700, it automatically defaults right back to 600. I looked at the forum. It looks like they're planning on changing that to allow you to work with wider width dimensions, which I think is important because this software can do a lot more than just little mobile logos. You can create like a full, header image out of the thing if you have the ability to set it wider. So this is one of those areas where you might want to use Pixlr or Photoshop if you find that you run into limitations where you want to create an image that's wider than 600 and it's not letting you. You might want to take some snaps with the little red snapper, take them into Pixlr or Photoshop, and then manipulate them over there to basically get what you want anyway. So we'll cover that too. But at the moment, I'm just going to put it back to 320. We'll talk about doing a mobile. And I'll tell you honestly, I think 160 pixels is too tall, just my own personal opinion. Think about mobile. That logo typically is going to be used at the very top of the mobile page, so navigation or other things will likely be underneath it. The taller that logo image is, the further down your other more important content is. So just something to think about. I would probably try to set this no more than 100 pixels. 80 to 100. I know for Dave and I, we have our own mobile web template product, Mobile Web Pro, and for us, all of our demo stuff is set up at 100 pixels in height, and that's kind of where I would cap it out, but it's up to you. So we'll just leave it at the default setting here for the moment. This camera icon to the top left is the one that you're going to be using all the time to take snaps. The only other suggestion I will tell you is you want the window open already before you hit the camera. I found out that if you're over in a new tab somewhere and you have the software open and you click the camera here, it's expecting that you want to snap something on this page, and since I don't, if I click over here to try to go back to where I want to be, oops, it just took a snap. So just one quick little tip for you, make sure that the window is open and active of the area that you want to snap before you go ahead and click the camera icon. So click the camera. I can go ahead and snap this. It's going to take, this image is literally, it doesn't include any of this kind of dark gray, almost black color. When I snap it, of course, it's going to get that as well. So you'll see that here. It's going to take that. Of course, I could be really cautious and try to take, just the right area in the bottom. But now we have a snap of that image, and I'll try to center this for you. As soon as you snap, of course, you do have the ability to move that image wherever you want. So I can then basically just move it up and push off that gray portion until it's basically gone. And since I really, on this particular thing, I only intend to put the Cheesecake Factory back over the top of this image, what I can do is, you'll see that there's this function here, kind of has the crop icon around a rectangular object. It says crop the canvas to the visible image. So whatever image you have in here, if you click this icon, it's going to automatically trim basically to the image itself, which is a cool little feature, definitely a big time saver. So now that I have that like this, the next thing we can do is basically go back to the main site, and we can take another snap. And actually, before I do that, one of the things that's kind of strange when you first start working with the software is this whole backdrop create thing. But you do want to choose backdrop and then choose create after you've made your first snap. It basically just fixes that image in the background. So now that I've done that, I'll click the camera again, and this is basically just a process in which you are, left clicking, holding, and then dragging down, and then just make sure that you're getting just the area you want prior to releasing your left mouse click, because that's when it actually takes the camera snap. Okay, I don't know why I didn't open up the window. Let's see, there it is. Okay, so now you see we have Cheesecake Factory, and it's over top of the other image, and now I have the ability to move this. I have the ability to line up basically those horizontal lines to make it blend in. And I can even, one of the cool things about this software is each individual snap becomes scalable completely by itself, which is a really cool feature, the ability to move these things around independently. And it's kind of hard to see, but it's actually really good right there. It's probably not perfect. There's probably some amount of line down here at the bottom. I don't know that it's lined up exactly perfectly either. But for my eye, it's really, really close. So there's one way that we basically got to, create this image, and it allowed us to do, because we took a snap of the full image in the background, you can see that we have a lot more of that top bar. If you see this kind of red square here, and then the light kind of, I don't know what it is, almost a green, and then like a tan, you'll see that that's this square here. And if I tried to take that snap just live, we would have come over the top of this word menu and this image and this vertical image, which is why I didn't do it. So I'm hoping that that makes sense. We basically viewed the image in the background, took the snap of the image in the background, and then took this snap separately such that we could basically overlay the two without having to start trying to mess with graphics that we didn't want involved in our logo. So anybody have questions just about that little logo creation? Or
no questions about that in particular, but I have a question. I want to know the fade edges feature.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it on that top graphic to see how that kind of blends in? Because
yeah.
I can see it squared on the very bottom there where it says Cheesecake Factory.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, we'll show how to fix that over at Pixlr, but
okay.
But yeah, so we'll try it, because I don't honestly know if it's going to fade just the new snap, or if it's going to try to fade the entire thing, but we'll see. So what Dave's talking about is under fade edges, you have the ability to fade just the top, the bottom, the left, the right, or both the top and the bottom. So
Yeah.
Dave wants me to try the bottom, so we'll try the bottom, see what happens.
Yeah, I was just curious to see how that would.
And let's see if we blow. That's actually just blowing up.
Yeah, it's a neat feature, nevertheless. I mean, that's.
Oh yeah, the fade is very cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, I just chose the top and bottom. I think we do backdrop create. We tie it top and bottom. Quite honestly, I'm not even seeing much effect. One of the other things you can do, of course, is to put a border around the entire thing, which, depending upon the logo look that you're going for, can be a good thing. One of the things that I found a little strange, most of the graphics programs, you simply, if you have the eyedropper tool, the color picker basically, you click on it and then you click on an area. With this one, you can't just click and click. You actually have to click and drag. So the center big square allows you to set the background color, and this darker line that goes around the edge allows you to set the border color if you want a border at all. So you have to basically click in the appropriate area. For this, I want to do a border, and you left click and you hold, and then slide it up to the area that you want to basically model for that color, and then you let go, and you'll notice that it changed from a black to a dark chocolate kind of brown. You won't notice any border effect at the first, because the border size was set to 0 pixels, meaning basically nothing. But if I set it to like 1, you'll see that we just got a really thin little border that's the right size. And if I set it to 2, that's even kind of better, because there's a little bit of weird white space. And so that can be a cool little effect. I do want to point out real quickly that while the software is awesome, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody or say, hey, look, I'm smarter than somebody else. That's not my goal. But I do want to point out that there were a couple of errors made in the actual instructional video. One of which was the instructor made the comment that PNG images were transparent, and that's not actually accurate. So you just need to understand that the software has the ability to save the image in 3 different graphical formats. One is GIF, or some people pronounce it GIF. One is JPEG, and the other is PNG. Now, GIF and PNG images, both of them can be transparent. You can have a transparent background, so you could cause the Cheesecake Factory portion to be completely have a transparent background behind it, such that you could set it over the top of any color or graphic and it would show properly. The only format for images that can't do that is JPEG. JPEG images always have a colored background behind them, and even if you were to overlay it on what looked to be a transparent background in Photoshop, and I can show that live, it will put a white background behind it. It just JPEGs just they can't have a transparent background. GIFs and PNGs can, but please note that not all GIFs or PNGs do. That's the error that was basically made. When you are saving an image, not out of Little Red Snapper, but out of Pixlr or out of Photoshop, you have the ability to choose whether you want a transparent background or not, and I'll show you that live. So anyway, we've got our first little logo.
Real quick, there was a question regarding the 2 different file formats, the GIF and the PNG. Which one is more is larger or demands more? Where's the question?
Why, Dave? Why, Dave? I'm glad you asked.
PNG or GIF?
I'm going to show that to you right now live.
Okay.
Because here's the honest answer. That question cannot be answered globally. It is completely dependent upon the image itself. So here's what you need to know. GIF images are really best used for simple graphics that don't have a lot of gradation or a lot of fade from one color to another. If it's a simple kind of a graphic, you're probably going to get your lowest file size when using the GIF. And you said 2, but there's 3. Don't forget, you can save 3 formats out of here, not 2. There's GIF, JPEG, and PNG. JPEG images, it stands for Joint Photographic something or other, something group. But the term photographic is in there because JPEG images are the best for photographs. Photographs have huge color variations and huge gradations, real subtle fades from one color to another, or from a darker color to a lighter color of itself, etc. And so JPEGs are really the best for photographs. PNGs are the newest file format of the 3, and they can do a lot of things that JPEGs can. It's a good format. The only bummer about PNGs, if you care, is that all the way back to Internet Explorer 6 and before, they didn't deal with PNG images. That particular, I hate Internet Explorer.
Boo,
yeah,
Internet
boo.
Explorer.
But anyway, if you do have a crowd that is looking at stuff, still using it, if you look at your stats and you still see that people are dialing up your web properties with Internet Explorer 6 or anything before it, you might want to stay away from PNG images because they can't be viewed on those browsers. Anything 7 and newer can, but we'll just show you here. So let's say we're finished with this image. We're going to save it. The save icon is the top right. You click it. It brings up this dialog box, and I'm going to save it where my test area is for the Little Red Snapper test folder. We'll cause this one to be cheesecake, and we'll make this one cheesecake and GIF in big. Now, here's one of the areas where I'm kind of bummed with the software, just to be honest. Most programs, when you say save as file type, GIF, and you click Save, it would automatically just add the .gif extension to the file, and all would be well. With this particular software, at least at the way it is now, they may change this in an update. You actually have to type the extension. Here's another little tip I found as I was playing around with this yesterday and today, and initially was frustrating me. You have to make sure that your selection down here of the three is selected before you type the extension. So here's an example. Let's say that right now it's a GIF and I want to save it as a JPEG. So what I have to do that is type the period dot JPG, and if I do that and then I go down here and I go to do JPG, you'll see that it just wiped my work. So it's frustrating, but now that you know how to work with it, hopefully you'll avoid the frustration. The first step is to select which type, so GIF first, and then put the cursor behind it and type the period GIF. GIF for GIF or GIF, and then click Save. Okay, so we just saved it in GIF. Next, we're going to do the same thing. We'll do it all 3 times. Answer that question live, at least for this particular image. We'll do cheesecake, and this time we're doing PNG. And you have to remember to type .png after making sure that PNG was activated. Save. Third time, we'll activate JPEG, cheesecake, JPEG, and this is another one of those things that's weird. I actually haven't tried it .jpeg, but it's not accurate. So this one's kind of weird. You have to remember that with JPEG, you want to drop the E when you save it, just .jpg. Oops.
I do see that format sometimes, okay.
Yeah.
Why is that? Is that just like an old way of doing it?
Yeah, you remember, it's just one of those weird things. Most extensions on the web actually were designed for 3. They really wanted to go with 3. So .com, .org, .net, etc. But you know, it's one of those weird things where it just doesn't make any sense, because it used to be that most like web creation software programs like Dreamweaver, etc., they would create all of your pages as .htm rather than .html, rather than 4 characters. Either .htm or .html works, and the same thing with .jpeg, JPEG, and .jpg. They both seem to work, but all of your newer software stuff will save it with 3 .jpg. So we'll do that with this one, and we'll save it. And now that we've got that saved, let's open up that folder, test folder, and let's just take a peek. Some of my playing around. Here's the 3 cheesecake images. We'll choose to do details so we can see file sizes, and here's the live results. So the GIF image ended up being 19 kilobytes. The JPEG image was 23 kilobytes, and the PNG was 1 at 24. So in this case, as far as file size was concerned, the GIF image is the winner. The next thing that you can do is basically just make sure that you preview. If you decide to save each of them, you can preview your images and just look at them for file quality, because in web graphics, there's always, well, in graphics in general, there's always a kind of a push-pull, a cause and effect, basically, between the file size itself and the quality of the image. So this actually looks pretty good at that size, and this is the GIF. If I preview the JPEG, I certainly don't think it looks any better. And we can preview the PNG. And quite honestly, I'm not seeing a strong difference between any one of those images. So if the image quality, you know, is completely satisfactory, then the answer to the equation is then choose the one that has the lowest file size, because it's going to help your pages render faster. Again, this is more critical for mobile than it is for anything else, but there's no real good reason to have your file sizes larger than they need to be. So that's pretty much it for this particular image. This particular image, the GIF was the winner. Any questions on this before we just start messing around with something else?
I have a couple questions that are coming in regarding. You said the feature in Firefox being able to view image or save image. Is that an add-on, or is that just using the browser in general?
No, just the browser. You will notice that it doesn't always work for a number of reasons, like this Cheesecake Factory. The actual logo itself, you can see that as I roll over it, it becomes active, and that's because this is an image link. So if I right-click on this, what I get is all of these copy link locations. This actually does have view image, so this is actually a good thing. Not all the time are you going to get this opportunity, but this image here itself is actually, you can snag it by itself, and this is the cool thing about this particular image. If we look up here and we see that it's a .png image, you can see the image name, horizontal underscore logo.png. This is a transparent PNG more than likely. I say that because you're seeing this black or dark charcoal gray color all around it, and this is not an image. This is just a feature of Firefox. So what you can do in this instance is right-click, save image as, and then we could put back in the test folder. Let's just create a new folder for Cheesecake Factory. And I can save this as, I don't know, transparent logo. Can save that to our machine. Now that we've saved that to our machine, what we can actually do is we can do this whole process again real quickly. Let's do this. We'll open up Little Red Snapper, and this time, this is going to make the image even cleaner. We'll go File and then Reset All, basically just to dump this. You have to click Proceed to make sure that you want to proceed, and it resets everything. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to re-snap that horizontal background. We'll go back to the Cheesecake Factory site. And over in this area that's not, where the cursor is active, I'll right-click, choose View Background Image. That's where we were to begin with. We'll quickly take a snap of this again, just like we did before. Now that we have that, we can position it where we want it. I can go ahead and click this button to trim basically to the visible image just like we did before. Now we can go Backdrop, Create, which again fixes it to the background. Do File, Import Image. And let's see, we need to go find the right place for it. Oops. Test folder, Cheesecake Factory. Now we can actually open up that transparent PNG image, and this is like perfection here now, because now we no longer have that the background in play, so we don't have to worry about the fading, etc. And so now we can position this, wherever we wanted, and we can even scale it, up a bit. Just remember, as you scale things up, they become less. I don't know why this thing is messing with me in regards to. There, that looks good. And then we can go ahead and save this, and this would be, of course, if you want to do a little SEO work, now's the time to do it. Add your keyword phrase to your image file. Might as well just go ahead and make it a GIF since that seemed to work out just fine. Remember to type the extension and save. And now we've got a perfect image that would work. And of course, if we wanted to add the border again. Again, you left click and hold in the border area, choose the color, whatever that happens to be. Maybe you want to use the light gold this time. Try that, see what that looks like. Change the border size to something that you can see. Maybe that looks cool. Maybe thinner looks cool.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And that kind of leads into Scott had asked a question about what, how do you know what layer you're working on?
Yeah, that's one of the weird things with this. You don't really get to see layers. It's just each time you move it and you go to backdrop create, it fixes it. So here's an example. Right now, because I haven't gone through backdrop create for the Cheesecake Factory, I can still move this thing. So let's say I wanted to move it over here. Let's see. We want to put it there because we want to put something down here on the right. You can do that way. As soon as you get it fixed where you want it, you go to backdrop create, and now that part is fixed. And now we can take our third snap, basically the new layer that's going to be on top. So I don't know, what can we grab that might make it make sense? Maybe just this little four-way square here. I don't know if I can. Okay, cool. It actually is by itself, so we'll snap.
Very friendly website for images, huh?
Yeah, not every one of them is going to be like this, but and I honestly didn't pick it for that reason because I didn't do most of this. Okay, I'm not liking that. I got too much of the black, so you can file undo. Edit, undo, I guess. Ooh, what was that? When you do the backdrop create, it's kind of weird. It actually gives you the ability to create a duplicate, and sometimes it's cool to do that, and sometimes it's not. This time it wasn't. So one thing you just need to know: you can drag it completely off of the image area, and then click this scissor icon. If you look at the scissor icon, it says trim off any masked portions. So anything that's not shown, it trims it off. So if I click that area that I just drug off, it's gone. It's not part of the image anymore. So let's see. Let's try that again. Let me see. Can I? No, it's not going to allow me to zoom in on this one. Let's just do this again. I'll try to be a little bit more careful with my snap. I'll click the snap icon. I'm going to be this is one of those things where you just kind of got to get used to lining up crosshairs and trying your best. It would be best to save the image. I just don't want to do it for time's sake. But all right, so there's the image itself, and let's say that we wanted to bring that, into here, and we wanted to scale it down a little bit. That's kind of cool. So now you have your ability to have your third, layer, and if you wanted a fourth, then you would just go again, backdrop create, which would fix it. But what I wanted to point out is when you do backdrop create, it actually creates a clone. So if you don't click and drag on it, it doesn't. But if you left click on this and you drag, it created a clone of it. And so if you wanted, if you wanted multiple usages of that same snapped image, you can do it that way. And then when you get it to where you want it to be, you just backdrop create, and then that basically just fixes it. And then you save it. So any question on the Cheesecake Factory? And they're pretty simple, but
yeah,
we did cover a number of cool stuff. Okay, cool. So let's talk about something a little bit more complex, and this will take us into Pixlr, where we got to basically do some funny business. So let me go to File and reset all, proceed. Okay. So if we go back to, let's see, the web. I was messing around with just Anaheim restaurants, and one of the ones I looked at was JT Schmid's. They got a nice logo, but the problem is for us, is that they got this really cool logo, but you also see all of this other imagery that's right behind it. And this also kind of brings up the slicing part. You'll notice that, of course, the top of this image is kind of elliptical or an oval shape. But if I right-click and choose View Background, look at what we're going to see. That whole image is one slice, but look how they sliced it. They sliced it such that they've sliced it straight through the top of that oval. So that particular technique doesn't help us all that much with this particular image. So that's one thing to think about. And now we've got this other problem. We've got these other images that they may or may not want used as part of the mobile. Of course, if they did, that would be awesome because it would cause us less work. So we'll show it just a couple of ways real quick. If we're back on this page and we use Little Red Snapper, of course, we click on the camera icon. We have to choose, where we're going to, basically snap from. So I'm just going to snap from, I don't know, I need to be high enough to get over the top of the oval. That's why I'm eyeing that. And I'm going to say about right there. I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to take it all the way down to that little metal area that looks like it's got rivets in it. I'm trying to look left and right, trying to make the thing somewhat equidistant, basically the same amount of space on the left and on the right to kind of center the logo image. We'll take that snap. Okay, so here's one thing you need to know is that obviously at the moment the canvas is 320 by 160. So I could start using the scale to make this smaller and fit it in, but I don't want to do that, and here's why. I'm showing you this because I want to actually take this into Pixlr and manipulate it over there. So instead of scaling this down, I want to scale this up. And again, remember we have the ability to go all the way to 600, so I'll just go all the way to 600 pixels, and we'll see that we've got plenty of room now in that. Now we need height, and I don't know, maybe we'll go 300 pixels and see what happens there. Okay, so now we have the entire image. You can see that we have some space above and all around it. And if you're not familiar with this checkerboard pattern is just a graphic understanding that the background itself is transparent. So when you see this checkerboard pattern anywhere here, Pixlr, Photoshop, etc., it all means the same thing. It means that currently there's no background color filled in this area. So now that I've got the image snapped and at 100%, I'm just going to save the image, and then we'll take it over to Pixlr and we'll mess with it over there. So I'm going to just click the Save button, and I will save it as, let's see, will just be JT test, and I'm going to cause this to be a PNG image, because at least at the moment it's going to be the biggest file size and probably the highest quality that I can make it. I'll save. And then we basically just taken that snap. So I'm going to close Little Red Snapper. We'll go over to Pixlr.com. Again, it's just pixlr.com. And when you get there, there's a little link that says go to the editor, the online editor, and that's where I'm at now. So once you get to the online editor, it'll look just like this. Like I said, it's free to use. You don't even need a membership account or anything. There's a lot of functionality very similar to Photoshop. It doesn't work exactly the way Photoshop does, but a lot of it is very, very similar. So if you get really adept at Pixlr, you'll learn a lot of things that'll transfer over to Photoshop as well. So you can click File, Open an Image. We'll go find, let's see. We'll go find it. If I can figure out how to navigate my own computer. There we go. and we save JT test. So this is the image that we just saved. I'll go ahead and click, and I'm just clicking and dragging the right corner to expand this window. I'm going to click the magnification icon, and I'm going to, once I have it, hopefully you can see the magnification icon. Right now there's a plus symbol inside of it, which basically means if I left click once, it's going to grow in size. If I do it again, it's going to grow in size again. So we'll work with it about this height right now. And all I'm trying to do is just kind of give you just some ideas of what you can do with Pixlr. You're not going to be an expert after this, but hey, you can't break anything. It's free. Go over here, play with it.
I can't believe this is free.
Learn it. Yeah, it's awesome. So
Yeah.
here's what you need to know. On the right-hand side, there's a layers window, and you can create multiple layers just like you can in Photoshop. Think of it just like a cake. Any layer that is above another will sit graphically on the top. So if you want something to come underneath, you need to make the layer lower, and if you want something to sit over the top, you need to make the layer higher. And you'll see that here in just a second. In addition to that, the checkbox tells you whether the layer is actually viewable or active. So if I untick it, you see how the only layer that we have disappears. So what I'm going to do in this example is, okay, we've got this cool snap, and the client's okay with using, you know, the food and the beer and the wheat or barley, whatever it is. But of course, this stuff right here, this text, just doesn't work anymore. It needs to go. So what would you do in that case? Well, there's a number of ways to go about doing this, but the easiest way is to use what's called the clone stamp, which over here looks like a rubber stamp. So I'm going to click on it, and when I come over it, you'll see now there's this kind of a funky shaped outline. Right now, as soon as you highlight a tool, whatever tool features or preferences or settings are available will show up in this area typically. So you can see that there's something that says brush, and if you look at this, it's kind of like a dark dot with kind of a light glow around it. That's basically just telling you that it's not hard-edged. It's actually kind of has a soft edge to it. The 25 is telling you how large the diameter is. The opacity is telling you, we'll mess with this so you can kind of see. Aligned and sample all layers. Well, sample all layers would allow you to sample all active layers. Aligned, I'm not sure what these are. Again, my expertise is in Photoshop, not in Pixlr, but I do know enough that I can help you mess with this thing. So if you click the 25, you'll see that we have all sorts of options. We can make the sizing larger, again in diameter size. We can make the hardness harder, and sometimes you do want a hard edge, sometimes you don't. You can choose a square clone stamp tool as opposed to circular, etc. But right now I want a soft edge, but I do want it to be a little bit larger. I'm going to try, I don't know, let's try 50. Once you select it, you can click on just this top, the title bar, and that selection will go away. Now you see that our clone stamp tool has grown. So what it wants you to do is, and you have to kind of, you know, plan out your attack before you start doing stuff. You notice that in the background it looks like wood vertical slats, and the graphic is running vertically. You can see that there's vertical lines running to the graphic. So you don't want to be moving horizontally because you'd lose the effect. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right underneath here, underneath the word or the KS and stakes, is a clean area where I just have the wood color. I'm going to left click once, and that's going to sample that area. Then I'm going to move upwards, and I'm going to click again. And let's see. I take that back. I'm still learning. It's control click. I'm sorry. For Pixlr, you have to hold down the control key if you're on a PC, and then left click. That takes the sample. And once it's taken the sample, then you can simply left click. And you'll see how now it's colored over some of the stakes. You want to stay vertical. Don't be moving side to side, because again, there's vertical lines in the graphic that you're trying to erase. So now that I've gotten that, I'll move over to the left a little bit, and I'll control click again, and then I'll just click up that run. And the same thing I'll do here.
That is awesome.
And we can just keep doing it. Now, at some point, you might run into an area where over here, you don't really kind of have the space to use that big of a tool again, because now if I come down here, it's going to sample part of that French fry. And that's where using the brush size is going to help. So now that I've gotten, it's best to use the biggest brush size that you possibly can. It's going to make the work faster. It also typically makes the work better. But that's not always going to be available to you. Again, control click
So again,
to
you're
sample.
holding the control.
Yeah, so watch the tool change. If I push control down, it changes to that graphic. So once I hold down control, then I left click just one time, and that basically tells the software to sample that particular area. And once it's sampled it, I can then click multiple times again. Because I'm looking at the graphic and I'm seeing vertical striping to it, I'm following it vertically. And you don't have to worry about this excess edge stuff. We're going to cut it off anyway. So you get the idea. We've just gotten rid of that whole area, and it looks pretty good. You can also do, if you find it's just it's a little bit too noticeable, right here, this tool is the blur tool. And it works kind of similarly. I don't know if we have to hold down control in this one or not, but you can kind of just, yeah. You can just click and drag, and it'll start to blur the areas so it's not quite as defined. And again, you have to understand, we're looking at this image really, really big. The image is not going to be this big. It's not going to be this noticeable. So here's the next thing. I'm going to leave this area because you get the idea. I'm going to click on the top left icon here, which is crop. I'm going to click just inside this area because I want to cut off. I'm going to left click and hold. I'm going to drag till I'm just on the area, and then once it's there, I think we left click inside of it. How do we do this one? Okay, so I clicked image, and then it pops up this thing. Do you want to apply the changes? And I say yes. So now it should have. I still see that there's transparent background underneath, which it shouldn't have. So let's try this again. I don't want to see any transparent background. There we go. We got rid of the transparent background on the bottom. So that's kind of one way. Now, let's say that they did want text. They just didn't, or they even want to replicate that text. But of course, with the snap that we took, you necessarily can't use the text exactly as it is. So what you can do is you can go over here and click the A, which is the text tool. You can also click this big color area, which sets the main color. You can set this to some other color. So I don't know. For the moment, let's just set it to white. Hit OK. So now we have white selected. I can come up here and I can just click in this area and bring up the text icon. So type whatever text it is that the client wants, best restaurant 2012, whatever. You have the ability to choose from a very large variety of fonts. And if I move this box, you'll see that it's really cool. That actually gives you live representations of what the text looks like, which this is cooler than a lot of paid programs. So you can kind of figure out what kind of might blend well with other things, or what is similar to the type of. That's kind of cool. You can mess with the size. That would work. You can mess with the color, and of course you can put in a color size value. You don't have to use the slider. If you don't wanted it to be exactly 32 pixels, you can just type in 32. The style will depend upon the font chosen, but you might have bold or italic or bold italic or just regular, etc. The color now, as soon as you click it, you get this color palette, and you'll notice that once I drag over to the image itself, it actually brings up that color dropper similar to Little Red Snapper. And if I click here, now we get that same color of this text is now over here, which is cool. We can OK that, and we can OK this. Well, now we have this text over here, and if I click the Move tool, this one right here, you have the ability to move that. And we have other features to it as well. You'll notice that now we have this second layer. The new text went on a layer such that I can move it independently of anything else. And you'll see if I click on this area, this blue area here, if I click and hold and I drag it low, you'll see that the text disappeared. Well, the text is still there, but remember I told you it was like a cake. Since that layer is now underneath this other, it can't show through. So just clicking and dragging it above reverses that position. So there's just something else to think about. Photoshop works the exact same way. And you can click on this icon, the one to the left of the trash can, and it'll create new layers for you. You can create as many as you'd like to drag new elements into it, etc. And if you have layers that you don't want, you can just activate them. They're activated or active when they're that blue color, and then click the trash can and it will delete any layer that you have active as well. So we have that set up. Another thing down here is layer styles. So it kind of has like a starburst looking thing. And since I have, I should want to activate the text layer first. Again, make it blue, and then click Layer Styles. You see that it's going to give me some layer styles. So I can put a drop shadow. Now put a drop shadow on the text. Might be kind of hard to see. Let me actually turn off. Let me OK that first. I'm going to turn off the other layer so we can just see just this. So now you can see that drop shadow behind the text, and it looks kind of ugly. But you can activate any one of these kind of effects, and it's hard to see what they're doing a little bit by themselves. But here's another thing. When you click on the text itself, it brings up more options for you. So I've activated the drop shadow, and then I'm going to click the word drop shadow, and now you see that I get options. So I can change the opacity or how dark it is and make it really light drop shadow or really dark. I can change the distance. How far away do I want that drop shadow? Way over there or really tight to it? Typically you want it pretty tight. Maybe 2 to 4 pixels. You want just enough just to give it the text a little pop. Make the drop shadow a little bit deeper. You can even change the angle. So it's kind of like the light is coming from the top left and the drop shadow is coming to the bottom right. So you can click this line and actually drag it where now the drop shadows to the top or straight to the bottom or etc. wherever you want that drop shadow to be. And you can change the color of the drop shadow as well. So maybe you didn't want the drop shadow to be black, you want it to be this dark brown. Probably look better. Now we have this going on, and if I activate the other layer again, we have something that looks kind of nice. And now we can save the image. So you go File, Save. You can give the image a name, change the format. Again, this says Format Transparent Full Quality. So through Pixlr, when you save something as a PNG, they are only giving you the ability to save it as a transparent PNG. Of course, it really doesn't matter because there's no real need for transparency for this image, but for Pixlr, it's always going to be a transparent PNG. With Photoshop, that's not the case. You have to specifically select whether you want the PNG to be transparent or not. Remember that JPEG says good for most photos. JPEG, you can't have a transparent image. And then Actually, interestingly enough, you can't even save the thing as a GIF through Pixlr at all. So JPEG or PNG are going to be the two image formats that you're going to want to save it as. And down here, the last thing to point out is it says layered Pixlr image. For Photoshop, a full layered Photoshop image is a PSD, S is in Sam. So you actually can save these images such that you can bring them back into Pixlr and edit them again with all of the layers still intact. So that's another good thing to know. If you want to do that, I would recommend that you probably save it 2 times. You save it in the format you want, either JPEG or PNG, and then you save it again as a PXD such that you can bring it back in and manipulate it individually, because as soon as you save it as a PNG image, it's going to do something called flattening, which basically means that no longer would you be able to edit this text. But if you save it in the PXD version that's layered, you have the ability to reopen the image and then go back to the text layer, activate the text. You can actually click here, and I can actually go right back. Maybe, you know, they won the same award in 2013, and so that gives you the ability just to re-edit it without having to reinvent the wheel. So anyway, once we have it saved, we'll do JT test 2. We'll save it as a transparent PNG. What you will see then is it said it was 300K. Let's go open up the folder and take a peek at it. So that was JT test 2, and you will see that it is in fact a 301 kilobyte image. This is way too big for a mobile website. You do not want to go use this just like this. You're going to have problems. So one thing that you can do, I'll go ahead and just close this image. You can bring it right back. We'll go File, Reset, Proceed, File, Import Image. We'll open up that image into Little Red Snapper, and now we'll fit it in to the size. You know, if we had a specific size that we wanted to, you know, we could, maybe we'll fit it into 320, and maybe we want to change the height. Obviously, if we're looking to get all of that image inside, we'd need to play around with it until we got it to be something like that. Once we did, we can choose this icon, which crops the canvas to the visible image. So now we have it exactly as we want it. And then, of course, you could, you know, backdrop create and bring new images or new elements on the top of this thing, layered, just like we discussed earlier. Or you could basically just use this to save it in a more web-friendly or web-optimized size. So now that we have it in here, we can do another save as. We can save this as JT GIF.gif. Make sure that GIF was already activated, and then save. Now with that saved, we can open up the folder and then just look at it. So it's now 76K, which in my opinion is still way too big, but you get the idea. We went from 301K to 76K, which is a significant savings in file size. It's just that personally, I think that's just way too big. This is one of those cases where I'm almost curious to see what JPEG does. We can try PNG also for fun. And then go take a look at those file sizes. So the GIF image was 76, the JPEG was 84, and the PNG was 140. So still, even in this image, we're getting the lowest out of the JPEG, but this is still pretty high. So this is one of those times where, let me see. I'm not entirely sure what options Pixlr is going to give you to potentially optimize file size. Here's one of the times where if we had Photoshop, I'm in Photoshop now, File, Open. I can go open that. Let's see, we want the JT2 is the one that we did out of Pixlr. This one here. Now that this image is open in Photoshop, I can do File, Save for Web and Devices. This is basically, if you hear people talking about optimizing images for the web, this is how it's done. Save for Web and Devices. And then it gives you all sorts of opportunities here. So here's one of the things to look at. Right now in JPEG mode, Photoshop says that at 75 quality, it can create a JPEG that is 66.35K. Well, that's already lower than the original. Well, the original was 301K that we started with, but it's lower than anything that we got out of Little Red Snapper. If we want to keep it a JPEG, we can leave this selected, and we can just simply draw down the quality, and then we can look at the result. Now we have a 30K JPEG using 43 as the quality. But what you have to note is as you lower the quality here, yeah, we get a smaller file size, but you're going to see that the image becomes way more grainy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where there's a cause and effect between, how you don't want to, obviously do something that's going to make your client's logo look bad. So you have to be cautious with that. But you basically lower the quality as much as you possibly can while keeping the fidelity as good as possible to end up with a file size that is something that's going to work. Same thing, if I go to GIF now, we can do the same thing. GIF initially is coming up with 83, and there's all sorts of ability. I hardly ever use the GIF format, just so you know, but you can see that right now this image is being made up of 256 colors. If you wanted to do that in half the color size, you'll see that the file size got smaller. Image actually looks halfway decent. If you wanted to go half again, file size is getting smaller. If you wanted to do 16, you get a way smaller file size, but now you can really see that this is a grainy image. So that's probably not a good idea. Or you can choose PNG. PNG has two options, PNG 8 for 8-bit and PNG 24 for 24-bit. 24-bit is going to be way better in terms of quality. PNG 8 is going to be way better in terms of file size. We'll start with PNG 24. Here's what I was talking about. You can have a PNG image be transparent or not by ticking this box. This is one of the reasons why I just said that. Just note that not every PNG image is transparent. It can be, many times is, but not always. So you can choose PNG 24, but look at the file size, 212. If we go with PNG 8 for this image, now it's 72. So you kind of just got to play around with it and figure out, which is best. For this image, it looks like JPEG. It's going to give us the ability to create a decent image with something much less. So,
what's the ideal file size that you want to hit for mobile?
Ideal, as low as possible. I would say realistically, it becomes really hard. Of course, this is a big image. You would not want to use an image that was this size. I would say probably 20 to 30K is probably 30K is probably pushing about where I'd want to stop. But let's cancel out of here and take a look at the image size. So what do we have here? We do have an image size. I believe it's 320. No, it's not. Okay, I thought we had saved it as 320. So I'm going to change the image size to 320 as the max. And the reason why 320, if you're wondering, that's the typical image size, or the width of the smartphone screen in portrait mode is 320. For Dave and I, in terms of our Mobile Web Pro templates, we suggest 280. Happens to work for our templates, so it's going to depend upon what mobile platform you're using. But the image is now 280 pixels in width, and if we go to File, Save for Web, the end result is going to be better because the image size is now smaller. So even at 75 quality, it's at 45. And if we were to go, I don't know, to 60, now we're at 32. That's getting good. Go to 55. We're probably going to be under 30, or right at it. And I don't know, maybe 50 quality. Woohoo! 50 quality takes us to 24, and the image actually looks still pretty good. And you're kind of going to get what you want. So this is one of the reasons why I obviously use and like Photoshop, because you have a lot of control over optimizing the images, and you can see in real time what your settings are doing, both in terms of file size and in terms of the actual file quality at once. So this is we'll just save that one. Any questions?
No. Well, there's Stephen put a comment in here about GIFbot Image Optimizer. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
That's pretty cool.
See, that's one of those things where, you know, Dave and I, we both run this as a full-time business. This isn't a hobby for us. So I invest in the tools that are going to help me do the very best. And in this case, for me, it's Photoshop. And yeah, it does cost more than $1,000, but for me, it's just a business investment. So anytime people bring up the free stuff, I typically I'm not familiar with it because we don't use them primarily. But Pixlr I found a while back, and I started playing around with it, and it actually is a pretty solid tool, much more solid than most free tools. So do you have a URL? Do you have a URL?
Let's see if I can grab it.
Just tell me what it is. We'll go take a quick peek at it. We're 15 minutes over time, so.
Yeah, we're already over. I can't copy and paste it. It's netmechanic, netmechanic.com /
netmechanic.com
/ products / accelerate.
Okay.
I don't know. Is this the right file extension? .shtml. There it is.
GIFbot. All right. Is this an online tool, or is it
I don't know anything. I have.
It says buy it. So this is a paid tool too.
Oh.
It says GIFbot is a free tool, but they have a buy it. So it tells me it's not entirely a free tool. It's a free tool either for a short time or for a limited reduced feature set or something. Change file size, not image size. Reduces the image file size, but the display size. Yeah. So it's optimizing it. It's optimizing. Basically, any of the tools that are optimizing it, basically it's going through what they call a compression algorithm. All of those file format types, JPEG, GIF, PNGs, that's what it is. It's a certain compression algorithm that's trying to compress the data and then format it a particular way. So let's see here. We can either enter the thing or we can do browse. So we can do that. let's see. All right, now does the image, I'm wondering, does the image have to be a GIF to start off with? Doesn't say, so we'll try the JT test 2, which we know is 301 kilobytes, and see. All right, so enter your email address. You got to put in, yeah. So they're using it for lead gen. I'm not going to go through that, but you get the idea. I guess if you want to try this out, I can take this, copy this, and send it to all in case anybody wants to look at it. I'm going to send it to the entire audience. Hopefully everybody just got it. So if you want to take a look at that particular URL, it should be in the chat box area for you.
All right. Wow.
Anyway,
I'm impressed with Pixlr. I think that's great, especially for someone like me that is Photoshop illiterate.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest uses of Pixlr is going to be in terms of using that in conjunction with. Let me do this. Let me go back to just a blank tab. In conjunction with Little Red Snapper is going to be text, because a lot of times, if you saw in the demonstration videos that were really well done, a lot of times he was grabbing areas that had text and bringing them in, and it's the text that quite frequently is going to be, it's going to have less fidelity than you would like it to have when you get to the final product. So if you know some tricks, that'll help you basically erase certain areas like I just showed you with Pixlr. And from this size image, I dare you to tell me that there used to be other text there.
Yeah.
It
looks great.
It looks solid. You can't tell. So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, we didn't have to keep these, the other images. We could have cut this entire thing out. Would have taken, longer to do, but you can do that kind of thing as well through Pixlr. You just need to start playing around with it. There's this magic lasso tool that you can use to just draw around an object, and then I think it's for, let's see, this one, I think it's a different place. Yeah, invert selection. So I guess here, let me just see if I can show that real quick. Okay, so here's the image that we created out of Pixlr. Well, we took the snap in Little Red Snapper, brought it over here. We used Pixlr to kind of get rid of the text that was here and replace it, etc. But maybe you want to try to get rid of this altogether. It's going to take you more time. Please note that. One thing, you look at the background, and you'll see this little padlock icon. You're typically going to want to unlock the background. So you double click on the padlock and it will unlock it and become just a regular layer. So that's just one thing. There are times to lock a background, so you can't mess with it, but most times when you want to edit, you don't want that to happen. So using the lasso tool, and I guess I probably should use the magnification tool. It's best to get the thing as big as possible to make it easier on yourself when you do things like this. With the lasso tool, you can actually take and let's see here. We can just kind of draw around, as kind of carefully as you can, and I'm doing this fast, obviously, and I didn't like that, but that was really inaccurate. You get the idea. Once you get close, you'll see how it puts this moving line around it. In Photoshop, they call these the marching ants. So that's selected currently. The first thing I want to do is I want to actually create a new layer. You see that it's transparent. They got that checkerboard pattern. I'm going to click on the layer and drag it underneath. I want a transparent layer underneath it. and I'll activate that main photograph again. Under Edit, I can go Edit and then Invert Selection, which basically means instead of selecting this area, select everything else. So Invert Selection, and now you'll see that the lines are still there, but you also see there's an additional line around the entire area. I want to remove everything except for this area, and then I can click Backspace, and then bingo, that entire area is gone. This brings up a lot more challenges when you're doing that, because now, of course, what are you going to do to replace the background with? Let me see, Edit, I need to do deselect all to get rid of the marching ants, but in Photoshop you have the same ability. Basically, quite frequently we would probably take this into Photoshop and then just knock out the logo itself entirely, such that we could use it on any background that we wanted. And the process is pretty similar between this and Photoshop. But now that you have it like this, the next question is, well, it's pretty ratty. What do you do? And you're going to have to play around with this to learn, what capability. Each image is going to be different, but this icon here is called the magic wand. They just call it the wand tool. And what it has the ability to is select, just by clicking, selecting areas that it thinks is similar in background and then knocking them out. You'll notice that there's a tolerance level, and it defaults to 21, and you can go either lower or higher, and I'll show you what that does here as we do it. It was at 21 initially, so we'll use the default just for a second. So I'm just going to use with the magic wand tool, the wand tool activated, I'm just going to click over here on the wood, and you'll see what it's done is it's tried to find every area of the graphic that it thinks is exact or very close to the area that I just clicked in. So it thinks that's the wood. And once it's activated, you can click your backspace button and it'll just naturally cut it out. And you can click over here and click backspace and click here and click backspace and just continue that process all the way around. If you increase the tolerance level, it will allow more variant in the color, and it'll select more area. So you'll see here, if I click this, you see how much it just selected. And if I click now, I'm going to have problems. It's going to get rid of all sorts of stuff that we didn't want to get rid of. We'll get Edit, Deselect All to turn that back off. If we turn the tolerance way down to say like 5, started at 21, you'll see it's going to select, look how tiny that area is. It's hardly anything. So there's a sweet spot, and you can adjust this as you kind of go around your image. Again, 21 is where we started. Edit, Deselect All. You'll see that at 21, that's the area that gets selected. And again, that one would not be good. So you have to be careful when using this tool. For us, we would actually use the pen tool, and we would actually blow this thing way up, and we would use the pen tool to very carefully draw a line all the way around the image area that we wanted to keep, and then we would invert the selection to select the opposite, and then delete it, and it would get rid of everything that we didn't want kept in the image. And then once that was gone, you see how it basically kind of just get rid of stuff here. It's a lengthy process, and you still have to be careful with what you're doing, but you get the idea. You have the ability to then fill it with a particular background. So maybe something like, I don't know, like that. The paint bucket, now let's get rid of the selection. The paint bucket tool over here is what you use to fill an area. So you click the paint bucket tool and then click, and then You can see where it's filled the area with a color, but you can also see how ragged the other image is. This is just one of those things where it takes time and a little bit of skill to just kind of play around with it to get it to where you wanted it to do. But that's, that's anti the whole little red snapper. Realistically, what you want to do is the ability to,
Snap it.
make quick screen grabs. And the thing I love about the little red snapper is just that ability to make snaps individually, to bring them in, to size them individually, to move them around individually, to then set them. And it's an awesome little tool. Again, the usefulness of that tool, though, is really going to be dependent upon it's going to be dependent upon the background that you're trying to snap. Some websites are going to be easier. Some websites are going to allow you to right-click and save an image. So that's hopefully a little trick that you benefit from. Another little trick I wanted to show you just real quick is you will find very frequently, especially if the business is even somewhat known, you might be able to get by with using Google Images. For instance, I initially was looking to do one for Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen, which is a restaurant right next to Disneyland. And when I went to their website was not friendly image-wise. I couldn't get the image snap from their website easily. So then I basically just came over here and I put in the actual name of the business. And you'll see that there's the logo. An older version of the logo is right here with, nothing in the background, so that would work. The newer version I found lower on the page. It was, let's see, right here. So you may be able to find the image that you're looking for, right over at Google Images. If you just search for it, they might have it individually. And now that I have this, I have the ability to save this image as, and I can take this now and bring this right into Little Red Snapper, or take it over to Pixlr, and basically there's another little trick and workaround for you that you might be able to benefit from. So we cool?
Sweet. Yeah, man. Great stuff. We're at an hour and a half, so
Alrighty.
I think we covered it.
We did. And then some.
Yeah. Yeah, and then some.
Cool. So go out there and use that thing. Use that thing.
Use that thing. I think the best part about the Little Red Snapper is its speed. Guys just practice it, get it going, and start selling those mobile websites. There's all kinds of money out there to be made. So best of luck to all of you. Yes, it is being recorded. I said I wouldn't say it, but I did.
Told you would. I knew you would.
I know. It's being recorded. We'll get the recording out to you as soon as we possibly can. But please allow us some time to get that out to you. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Coop, as always, great job. Good stuff.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.